Hello everybody and welcome to our session today on surprising careers with physics. I'm Alison Round-McEwen from Founders for Schools, and today I'm going to be leading a session with Julian Phillips from the Institute of Physics, and we're going to be talking about some of the slightly more unusual careers that you would find in physics and you might not be thinking of. We are also meant to have Zara Rutherford with us today, a young aviator who has circumnavigated the world. She seems to be having some problems joining us, so fingers crossed it will manage, but if not, I'm sure we'll still have a really good session. So firstly, Georgina, thank you very much for coming along, talking to us. It's appreciated. So a couple of little housekeeping rules. You're not on camera. It's just Georgina and myself who are showing it on camera, but we do still want you to take part in the conversation. So if you have any questions, please do pop them in chat, and you can pop them there whenever you like. It's absolutely fine. We will be monitoring it and we'll try and answer as many questions as possible. And fingers crossed it will all work smoothly, and Zara will hopefully be able to join us a little bit later on. So why are we here today talking about surprising careers with physics? Well, this week is Founders for Schools Role Model Week. This is the second time that we've celebrated role models, and it's very, very important to us as a charity who helps young people try to prepare for the world of work, because role models, slightly different definitions of what that could be, but essentially they're people who can influence their life and their activities, influence others. And research has shown that when it comes to career development, if you have a role model in your life, you're more likely to be successful. To the point with, if young people have role models of at least 4 or more encounters with people from the world of work during the time they're at school, then they are 5 times more likely to be either in further education, training or employment when they leave school. That is quite a big impact. Unfortunately though, studies have also shown that only 1 in 4 children have a role model. Thank you, Fillingay. Oh, I hope I pronounced that right. Farlingay High School. Thank you. Coming along. Yeah, so it can have a substantial impact on your future career if you have a role model. But there is a very good chance that you don't have a role model, or if you do have a role model, maybe it's like a footballer, a singer, it's not necessarily somebody that can help you further your career. Now, there's nothing wrong with the type of role model. It's a footballer or a singer. They've obviously been successful if you've heard of them, and it's always good to reproduce success, but sometimes it helps if you've got somebody that's a bit closer to home that can help you with a particular or specific career path that you're looking to do. So we're hopefully going to tell you about some types of roles you can go into, and Georgina will tell us some of the jobs that are available in physics, and maybe from that you'll be able to think that might be for me, and from that you'll find a role model and hopefully go on to much future success. So just before we speak with Georgina, I've got a little presentation to just talk about some of the areas that are very popular for people who study physics. So can everybody see this okay? Georgina, you're going to have to nod because you're the only person
I can see it. Yes, I can see it.
Right. So when it comes to physics, if you decide to study physics as you go throughout your education, there are very definite areas that young people are interested in and think that they might want to go and do future careers in. The biggest one by far is energy and utilities. Now, that is quite a big group. It can be anything from working in one of our nuclear plants. It could be going work for one of our renewable offshore wind farms. It could be a whole host of things that come under that. And clearly, given how much we talk about climate crisis, it is a very, very interesting and potentially world-changing career for you to go into. Others, for example, scientific research and development, you might think it's a fairly common route for physics, but you can also look at things like construction, civil engineering, and even consumer goods. Now that's what the students were interested in. Here's where they often ended up. Most of them ended up in professional, scientific or technical roles. So that's across lots of different industries. Quite a few in education, not as many as is actually needed in education. So if you have a passion for helping people and you're very good at sharing information, then maybe that's for you. If you also have a passion for physics, and then you get manufacturing, information communication technology. Data science is a massive growing industry, and they really like hiring people who have got physics degrees. They find they have got the right mindset. Same goes for things like AI and similar really cutting edge technologies there. And then wholesale and retail trade. But not everybody that does physics ends up going into those areas. Here are some famous people who studied physics. Who do you know amongst them? Any familiar faces? Now, some of you might not know who all these people are because you might be just a little bit too young. But we have, for example, Angela Merkel, who was the former Chancellor in Germany. We have Brian Cox, who you're probably, if you're going to know a physicist that's quite well known these days, Brian Cox is by far one of them. But we also have Brian May from Queen, who had a fantastic career in the music industry, but his first love was physics and he did go back to it. So it clearly is a big passion for him. Other well-known communicators like Dara O'Brien, who is very, very passionate about science. And also maybe not so familiar ones like Ben Miller. I don't know if anybody ever watched Death in Paradise, but he was a physicist from his education, and he is still very involved and writes about science as well as his acting work. But then there's very typical ones like Albert Einstein, who I hope you've all heard of, and Stephen Hawking. They're probably your more typical classic, that's what a physicist is, and that's what they do. Unfortunately, though, when I was doing my research, could not find many women in that. So hopefully there'll be some of you watching this today who are females and you think to yourself, well, I'm going to be a trailblazer. Next time somebody does this presentation, you're going to see a picture of me. So there you go. That's some well-known physicists, or well-known people who studied physics but haven't gone on to do that. But then let's talk about some of the other jobs that you can do if you study physics. And that takes me over to Georgina. Georgina, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yes, great. This is the second role model week that I've been part of. And yeah, last year was really exciting. And I think we might be sharing the webinar we did from last year with you this year. So you get 2 webinars for the price of 1 there. And that I always find it interesting attending the events we do with physicists, because I always end up learning about a new area of physics or a new type of job or a new field that physicists are in that I didn't know about. So I always enjoy being part of these events. So I'll explain a little bit about me and what my role is at the Institute of Physics, and then talk a little bit through the work that we're doing around careers. So yes, my name's Julian Phillips and I'm the campaign manager at the Institute of Physics. And I work on the Limitless campaign, which is all about getting more young people from underrepresented and underserved groups to do physics post-16. So as Alison pointed out, historically, physics has been seen to be quite white, quite male, and we're, amongst many things we're doing with the campaign, we're looking to challenge the myths and stereotypes that are formed around physics, what physics is like and who physics is for. So our 5 key messages that if you don't take anything else from this, if you just take these 5 messages, then my job has been done, are the following. So doing physics is not just an academic pursuit. It is a subject that can inspire and empower people to change the world. Physics is not just for one specific type of person, but it's for people of all identities and backgrounds. It's not a discipline of lone scientists, but depends on teamwork and diverse viewpoints. We also want to emphasize that being a physicist isn't the only career available to physics students. Knowledge and skills acquired by studying physics are useful in a wide series of jobs, and we'll be looking at some of those jobs. And physics opens the door to many stable career options, including well-paid jobs that do not require a degree. So our campaign is working to make sure that not just students, but also teachers, parents, carers, and everyone really is aware of the benefits of physics, and to be able to make sure that they feel that they can challenge those myths. And one of the ways we're looking to change the image of what physics can mean is by spotlighting the many different opportunities physics can open, including jobs that you might not associate with physics. And so that's one of the reasons we chose the title for this webinar, Surprising Careers in Physics. And that actually came from a year 10 student I met at a Founders for Schools talk. We shared a resource, which I have a physical copy here, and I'll share in the chat, which is, we've called it Change the World, Jobs That Make a Difference. And after we went through this with a group, one student said, I'm surprised I didn't realize that you could do physics and then go on and do all of these things. So I'm going to talk through some of the people that we featured in that booklet. And yeah, we'll be able to share those resources. And some of those resources are for students, some of those are for teachers, and hopefully you'll find them interesting. So where do you think choosing physics could take you? Could it be creating computer models to predict weather events? Perhaps into education to inspire the next generation? Or to a hospital using physics to help save lives? Maybe even into agriculture or the arts, using creative problem-solving skills and physics knowledge in a totally different way. We know that young people are well aware of the challenges the world faces today and the impact those challenges will have on your future. In response to climate change, poverty and pollution, many of you are already taking action to make a positive difference. Physics can give you the skills to understand and solve complex problems, not just in theory, not just on paper, but in the real world, where there are plenty of complex problems waiting to be solved. There are thousands of jobs to choose from, so where do you start? We've talked to people working in some exciting and rewarding industries to help you understand what their jobs involve and to see how many amazing, unexpected places doing physics could take you. However, we know that some people are put off choosing physics because they think it's too hard, or it's boring, or not creative. Others are discouraged from choosing physics because of stereotypes around who they are. Too many young people are made to feel that they can't do physics or that they don't fit in. Physics is for everyone, and doing physics could take you anywhere. The people in this booklet may be doing very different jobs in very different places, but they have one thing in common. They all did physics at 16. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen, technology allowing, and talk you through a couple of the people who are in our booklet. Can you see my screen, Alison?
I can't just yet. Saying reload. Hang on, we'll try that. Oh, technology is not with us today.
It's fine at this end, Georgina.
Oh, great. Okay, because I can see it. Okay, good. I will carry on. The visuals, if people can't see them, are just images of some of the people that we've featured. So first up is a lovely picture of Saoirse on her graduation day. So Saoirse is a touring and projects officer, a company manager, and a writer. She also does a bit of theatre criticism. And she defines herself as a feminist, an optimist, an enthusiast, an opinionated scamp, and human being. She currently works as the touring and project officer with the National Dance Company in Wales and is company manager of Richard Chappell Dance, as well as maintaining an active writing career spanning poetry, theatre, and film. So Saoirse was always quite excited about physics and really loved the breadth of things that physics could cover, from mechanics to nuclear physics. And she felt that it was a subject that had an immediate real world application and could help fulfill the curiosity she had around the world. And we asked if she had a favorite physics memory. And she said she remembered visiting an exhibition about CERN, which is the world's largest particle accelerator, on a school trip, and found it fascinating, and still has the t-shirt she bought at that exhibition. But her favorite memory is probably when her and her classmates were left to their own devices during an experiment on determining the focal length of a convex lens. Her and two of her friends realized they could do much more fun things than just focusing an image, and so began creating stories across the screen with various objects we found whose images we could project. So it isn't always the most obvious thing to go from doing physics to working in theatre, but she was one of 4 girls who did physics leaving certificate because she was based in Ireland. And she doesn't see that there's a bit of a gap between them, because she feels that her job involves a lot of creative problem solving and planning, and these were skills that she felt developed while she was learning about physics and science in general. A lot of things, one of the things that we always say around physics, as it quite often is seen as a knowledge subject, but so it's about learning lots of facts, but we also think it's a skill subject. It's about testing things out, seeing what's worked, what doesn't work, areas for improvement. And so admittedly, that might be you testing springs in a classroom when you're doing physics with a capital P. But if you think of physics as a skill, testing out ways that things can work are useful in pretty much all jobs. And yeah, Saoirse says that she finds that her physics knowledge appears often in unexpected places, particularly informing the poetry that she writes. And we asked everyone in the booklet, I think we asked everyone it, yes, what advice they'd give their teenage self if they had the chance. And she said, study what you love. If you get that excited buzz as you learn, that makes you want to dive further into a subject and that leaves you thinking far beyond the hour of a class. If it's the thing that sets your mind and imagination alight, then that's the thing for you. And that might not just be one thing. You don't have to stick squarely to one path. Explore, investigate, and enjoy. So that was Saoirse. Going on to the next slide. This is Lex. Lex is studying to be a particle physicist, which is very exciting. And they are very interested in the very big things and the very small things. As well as studying, they enjoy organizing physics competitions and interactive events. When we were interviewing Lex, they said that as a young trans person, they never saw anyone like themselves in the physics community and felt often that that they wouldn't belong or that it wasn't for them. And Lex wanted young people like themselves to have the confidence to do physics. Although A-levels were tough, and there weren't that many encouraging people around them at the time, they really found their place with the physics community once they got to university. So looking through what Lex has been up to, Lex's favorite memory around physics was making it through the first year of their degree. They finally felt that they found their place in physics and had proved that they were more than capable of pursuing their passion. So I think university can sometimes feel a bit daunting, but I think like being able to push through and like get there in itself is the achievement. So building on that, they had taken A-levels. Yeah, I think on the map, Birmingham. Yeah, that's where they're at now. So they've done maths, physics, and chemistry because they were the subjects they enjoyed most at school, and because they believed it would give them plenty of career opportunities. In terms of like overcoming any challenges whilst doing their post-16 study, they became unwell due to a disability and couldn't complete exams, and decided the best thing to do is actually to take some time off and think about a plan, and eventually decided to go back and finish the A-levels when they were better and benefited from that little bit of time off. And once they've done that, that actually gave them a little bit of the confidence boost that they'd given themselves that space to go forward. So in terms of advice that they would give their teenage self about studying career choices, Lex said, don't let others tell you what you should study. You know yourself better than anyone, and who you are does not affect your ability. So my advice is have confidence in yourself and pursue what makes you happiest. There is a place for you. So going on next. This is Femi. Femi is an IT risk management consultant. So kind of STEM related, but I'd say probably falls into that category of jobs that you wouldn't obviously associate with physics. So they work with Ernst & Young's business consulting practice in Dublin, and their job is around governance, risk and compliance of IT assets for some of the largest companies in the world. They're also a football fanatic and enjoy gaming and playing sports in their spare time. So thinking of a favorite physics memory, Femi said he really enjoyed the film Interstellar, and to actually be able to understand the theories and concepts that came up in that. This has sometimes come up at some of the other careers talks we've spoken to, and there's an organization called the Blackett Lab family who do a lot of work on spotlighting Black physicists in the UK. And I was at a talk of one of theirs, and one of the physicists there worked for Marvel to help them. I'm not saying all the physics in Marvel is 100% on, but Marvel does actually hire, well, lots of movie studios do actually hire scientists to kind of like fact check, make sure some of the things work, and all that, you know, they're kind of using science in the right way. They'll take some creative license, but that is an area you could end up working in if you carried on with a science subject. And yeah, looking at working in risk management, what are the kind of physics skills that Femi uses day to day? He says that physics equips him with great critical thinking and problem solving skills, and uses them every day in his role, which is client facing and requires versatility and flexible thinking. He wasn't necessarily sure that this was what he was going into, but when he was in his final year of college, a few professional service firms came in and did talks, and he liked that the role was both technical but also involved a lot of soft skills. So the phrase soft skills gets used a lot. That usually means around kind of interacting with humans, like not maybe necessarily on a screen, but sometimes on a screen, but those kind of like people skills, which I think sometimes don't get associated with physics. We get this idea of someone working alone in a lab, but a lot of science work is very collaborative. So you do need to be able to work with people. And yeah, a lot of people jobs can benefit from people with technical skills. So it's best not to necessarily think of those as two separate things, but like two separate areas of skills that you could develop. So for advice that Femi gave was, if you're an inquisitive person who constantly find yourself asking questions about how things work, then physics is the subject for you. It equips you with the skills to ask the best questions, but even better, it equips you with the tools to explore and understand the answers to these questions too. So that is Femi. This is Siobhan, who works as a school's physics technician in Edinburgh. So it's her job to design and set up the experiments and demonstrations at school and look after all the school's physics equipment. She also volunteers a lot with girl guiding and at science events like the Edinburgh Science Festival, and really values being able to do volunteering and finds it really rewarding and fun. So obviously it's a bit more obvious what physics skills Siobhan will be using, because she's setting up experiments and things like that. But she also likes to use these skills for things outside the classroom. So also runs a science club to be able to get people a little bit more enthusiastic about stuff outside of the classroom, and to kind of expand on bits of work that maybe they go through a bit too quickly in class and people want to be able to dive into a bit more. In terms of overcoming any challenges in her physics career, she was from a low socioeconomic background and had to balance work and her studies while she was there, and so sometimes felt a little bit left out with some people who were able to be doing a bit more. But she found a really good group of friends, and is still friends with most of them today. She found it a bit difficult being the first person in her family to go to university, but was really glad that she went. And the advice she'd give her teenage self is it's impossible to know everything that's out there, and you don't have to just pick one thing forever. So try things out, volunteer, have some fun, build your skills, and whatever choice you might make next will be the right one. Going on next to Mary. So Mary is the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Manager for the National Nuclear Laboratory. She's based in Warrington and is very passionate about making the workplace and physics a fairer, more diverse, more open and welcoming place. So her favorite physics memory is standing on top of Mauna Kea in Hawaii, which is the big volcano that they have there, looking at the laser guide star, which is an artificial star created by a laser beam after looking around the Gemini telescope that was there. She spent a lot of time in physics learning the theory of large telescopes, but the reality was something else. She did an undergraduate degree and a PhD in astrophysics, and initially worked in nuclear safety. And while she was doing that job, she became a trade union representative. And while working in that job, it made her think about how she could make a better difference to the workforce that she was working in. And so although she may not be using physics in her specific role now as a diversity and inclusion manager, the physics way of thinking she has found is very helpful. And she's brought all to her roles, including her current one, which isn't technical. And also, as being someone who went through physics herself and as part of the community, that might give her a little bit more buy-in maybe from other people who are like, oh, this isn't someone from outside coming in to tell us how to do things. This is someone else who's also studied physics, been through the same things as me. So that might add a bit of credibility to her role there. In terms of overcoming challenges, Mary is mildly dyslexic, and had struggled with her health a bit when she was a teenager. But she carried on going through because she knew that physics was what she wanted to do. And yeah, as we can see, it has had many roles in many different areas of physics. And the advice she said she'd give her teenage self is, to me, it's simple. A job needs to feel worthwhile. It needs to be interesting, and it needs to be a good fit for you. And there are jobs out there which can be these things, even if you don't know they exist. Which also taps onto, I think one of the speakers said last year when we were talking about what jobs would we recommend out to people. And they made the valid point that quite a lot of the jobs that they were told about when they were at school, some of those jobs weren't necessarily around in the same way by the time they got to their jobs. And also there are a lot of jobs now that didn't exist when they'd left school. So there is an element of that, particularly in physics and STEM, in areas that like, oh, there's a lot of discoveries happening, but there's also increasing amount of funding going into some of these things, that there are lots of jobs that I can't even recommend to you yet because they don't exist. But to keep doing something like physics keeps a lot of those doors open for jobs there. So the last person I was going to put a spotlight on here was Christina. She is an artificial intelligence product manager. Her job involves using coding and computer models to make decisions about where money is invested. Her physics background has definitely given her the skills to excel in this job. So when we asked Christina how she got into her current job, she studied physics at university, and she again highlights her problem-solving skills. That seems to be a theme throughout. And found that working in artificial intelligence, having the ability to think about the world in an alternative way has been very useful. The computer modeling systems that she builds will completely change the way that things work in the future, which is really exciting. When it came to looking at challenges, she said that early on in her career, it certainly felt that there were opportunities open to male graduates that she was actively discouraged from applying for. For example, she found finance was a very male-dominated place at the time and was aware going to the field that she might be expected to prove herself more than maybe her male peers, but has persevered through that. In terms of whether she uses the physics she learned in school in her current role, she said that she thinks that school physics encourages you to start exploring around a base topic and gather proof for yourself with experiments or further research. Using these skills comes up a lot when creating prototypes of AI products. And being able to judge the success or failure of an idea purely on data is really important. And she didn't give advice that she'd give to her teenage self. But there we go. So there are many other profiles that are available in this booklet, which I can share with you in the chat here and can be sent out afterwards. But I think what we really want to emphasize around physics is, as you can see, lots of the recommendations from the people I've read from, the role models I read from, weren't necessarily around you have to do physics is the best thing ever. They said that you should be doing the things that you're interested in. And one of the things that I've found when speaking to students is sometimes they're interested in physics, but because they're not also wanting to do chemistry and biology and maths, they can sometimes be discouraged from it because either teachers or parents or friends don't really understand why you might want to do physics and also do art, or why you might want to do physics and also do a language, because there's this idea that physics is either you're doing it with 2 other maths qualifications or you're doing it with 2 other types of science. And yeah, that can make sense, but we also want to encourage people who are interested in physics to be able to do it with any combination of subjects. I know this isn't always possible. For example, when I was applying to A levels, I was told by one sixth form college that I couldn't do a language and do a science because the way they'd set the timetable up was that they didn't think people who could be interested in learning a language could also be interested in doing a science. I'd say that that's their problem, and maybe challenge that if that's what's brought up against you. But we want to really emphasize that like doing physics opens a lot more doors than it closes. So if you are interested in doing it, then that should be something you consider. We also know that for some people, you know, you'll do a subject because you like it no matter what, but for some people they want that reassurance that it will lead on to a job or a career that will be good. And so we did speak to some employers to find out what they thought about physics, and we found so this was in 2020, we did a survey, and 78% of employers across the UK's professional sectors, so that includes legal, sales, media, and marketing, said that they have a positive impression when they see a candidate has studied physics to A level or higher or above. So that's, we think, is a really key thing there, that employers aren't, when they see that someone's got a physics qualification, they see that as a positive thing. There's a high demand for physics skills across a lot of different sectors. So like we said, there's the kind of obvious ones, maybe around engineering, construction, energy, transport, and manufacturing, but also business, finance, digital, teaching, health, and the public sectors all really really want physics graduates or people who studied physics post-16. And 1 in 20, that's 1.85 million jobs across the UK and Ireland, make use of physics skills and knowledge. So that's a key thing to think about. And lots of jobs related to physics are well paid, and many of them don't need a degree. So something that we're also trying to emphasize through the Limitless campaign is doing physics isn't done just one way. It's not just about, if you're in England doing physics A level, or in Scotland doing physics higher, and then going on to university, doing a postgraduate, getting a PhD, and that's the only way to do physics. As we saw here, some people did physics qualifications, went on to do different things. Some people came back to physics, but also there's a lot of technical pathways. There's apprenticeships, and I think there is one of the people in here did do an apprenticeship. And there are also other things like T levels that are coming up, which are other pathways that people can get through to do physics. So I think, yeah, that's what we want to emphasize. Another resource that I might share is comes from Ada Lovelace. So it's Ada Lovelace Day this week. I can't remember which specific day it is.
It's funnily enough, it's tomorrow, because we're holding another event for early careers for young women in technology.
There you go.
I guess as you say that, I don't know if the people watching will know who Ada Lovelace Day is.
Yes, I'll explain. Yeah. So Ada Lovelace was Victorian, is the right period? Definitely 19th century. She was a woman way ahead of her time in many ways, and she helped, is described by many as like the mother of computing, and worked with Charles Babbage on coming up with stuff that we would now definitely see as computing, and at the time was kind of unheard of. So Ada Lovelace Day has been brought about to celebrate not just Ada Lovelace, but kind of lots of the forgotten like heroines of science and the women who've been involved in STEM fields for many years. And they do lots of great work as well. And one of my favorite resources that they've made is a STEM, I think it's called like the Wonderfully Weird STEM Careers poster, but it shows lots of different pathways that actual people have taken, showing A levels on one side, university subjects in the middle, and then the various jobs that they go on to do. And it's huge and best viewed on a computer, so you can zoom in and see all of that. But it shows that there's lots of different combinations of subjects that people do, and the things that people study at a degree doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they go on to. And yeah, I think emphasizing that there's lots of different ways to do physics and to do STEM subjects is a key thing there. And as has been mentioned by various people, and they're emphasizing, you know, pick a subject that you want to do. I think that is a key thing, because if you're going to be doing it for several years, if you go and do a degree, you're going to be doing it even more. So if it's something that drives you absolutely crazy, that would probably be a lot more difficult for you to carry on doing. So it's good to like be able to like the subject a bit. So I think, and especially if it's something that you're passionate about, that can definitely help you get through those days when it feels like something's quite hard and you can't get through all of it. And one of the speakers from last year definitely emphasized that the way that she got through a lot of these things is to not think when she was having a bad day, I can't do physics, but to be like, I can't do this bit right now, but what can I do? And what little bit of this can I do right now? And so I think that's applicable to any subject that you're doing, to like not write everything off just because you're having like a bad day or like a bad term. Like all subjects, physics is one of those things that, you know, if you work at, you can get better, and some bits are going to be harder than others, but to not write the whole thing off.
Which is very good advice indeed, Georgina, and something I wholly back as a bit of advice. So thank you very much for that. There were some very interesting stories there, very, very diverse possibilities that young people could follow if that's something they're interested in the future. Unfortunately, Zara is not able to join us today. She's not having much luck connecting, but I think what we'll do now is, if anybody's got any questions, please do pop them in the message board, the chat board. I know some people have had to drop off. We will share the webinar that Georgina mentioned about Physics to Save the World, because again, it's the more role models, the more versions of the career opportunities that young people know about, the better. It'll help you understand what your possibilities are, what you have to do to get there. So we will share that with everybody else. Georgina, just a quick question for you then. So clearly you work for the Institute of Physics, which is the organisation that helps promote physics in the UK. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the jobs that exist in your organisation?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. And yeah, I think also evidence of different pathways to things. So we have a lot of people who are physicists. There are some people who work here who have PhDs and have had like other physics jobs, but have joined the Institute of Physics because what they want to do is make the ecosystem that physics is in a better place. And there's lots of people there, like me included, who didn't do physics post 16, but have come around to it through other ways. So yeah, we've got lots of different departments. Some of them are quite obvious departments that you'd have in lots of charities. So like we've got a finance department and we've got an HR department. There's a whole branch of the IOP that's just to do with publishing. So they publish academic journals that people at universities read, but also they run a magazine called Physics World. So there are people who write articles for that, record podcasts. And then, back in the Institute of Physicsy bit, we're a membership organization. So physicists sign up to become a member, and that means that they can access talks and come to events. So there's a whole membership team that work on making sure that the members are having a good time, sorting out all the logistics stuff around their programs. There's a learning and skills team, and they work predominantly around helping schools. So they run events for teachers. Any teachers out there who want some physics events, there's lots of CPD and like helping particularly helping teachers who aren't physics specialists who teach physics. As Alison mentioned earlier, there's a shortage of physics teachers. So a lot of people who teach physics didn't do a degree in physics in England. So that means they might be teaching a subject that they don't have that specialism in. So we try and support teachers there. Some people develop resources. We've got several websites, so there's lots of people who have to maintain the websites there. There's me and a couple of others on the campaign team that work over across the organization. So we kind of pick everyone's brains and try and get the most out of the teams to like get their ideas on other ways that we can help promote physics to get more people doing that post-16. We've also got an internal equality, diversity and inclusion team that do lots of work with the physics community to make sure that there's spaces there, and they help organize groups. So there's a women in physics group, for example, and I think they're looking at there's been asked for one around neurodiversity. The physicists want to be able to have that kind of community, so the Institute of Physics can kind of facilitate that. But yeah, there's a very broad amount of different types of jobs there. Oh, the events team. I'm worried someone's going to watch this back and I'll have forgotten their team. If I've forgotten your team, we have an events team who run our physical and online events. We have a facilities team who help run and look after the office, and an IT team that keeps all the tech running. So yeah, lots of different types of jobs just in what is a relatively small charity, but yeah.
Fantastic. Good. And yeah, very, very diverse, I think, is the point that you're trying to make there. I'm just popping into the chat another link from the Institute of Physics, and it's for Your Future with Physics. It's all the early learning stuff that looks at some of the specific detail that Georgina was referring to there about the fact that it doesn't necessarily have to be a university degree. You go and study, you can do an apprenticeship, you can do various different levels to help you get there. And again, we'll share this after the talk with the people that have signed up to come along. Okay, so we don't have any questions yet. So I think, given that Zara's not able to join, we should maybe just finish a little bit earlier and give you some time back. So thank you very much for coming along. We have another session tomorrow, as it happens, Ada Lovelace Day, as Georgina was talking about. We have our other sponsor of Role Model Week, TCS, sponsoring an event called Early Careers, Women in Tech, and we'll be having some of their staff from their organisation come to talk to us. Now, I don't know if you know who TCS are, but they are a massive consulting organisation. They used to be called Tata Consulting Services, and they do lots of interesting things across the world when it comes to IT and technology. And we'll have many physicists working for them because it's that sort of organisation. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much for Georgina for coming along today and sharing some role model stories about potential routes you can take in physics. We will be sharing a feedback form with you, so we'd really appreciate if you could fill that in and give us some details about what you thought. And we, like I said, we will be sharing the other resources that we have with you in the hope that you can use them in class and find out more. There are lots of resources on the Institute of Physics website, so if you do have other questions, I'm sure Georgina, if she can't answer the question herself, will happily forward it on to the right person.
Yeah, and I put my email in the chat, and I will speak it to those who don't have access to the chat in the future. campaigns@iop.org. If you email that, I run that inbox, so I'll be able to answer your question and be able to send over any resources or like Alison said, point you in the direction of someone who can answer your question.
Well, thank you very much for that, and thank you for your little note, Kerry. Yes, sometimes we just hit in between different school timetables, but thank you very much for coming, and have a lovely role model week.
Thank you very much. Bye.